How y'all doing? Mathew, Ramos, GAT Sport Elite Trainer here with you guys again. We're gonna go over proper form today. We're gonna start off with some of the more unique exercises that a lot of people do, but do them wrong. We're gonna go into tension, control, intention, mastery of technique, and 3 ways that that's gonna give you more muscle. Let's go. You will gain discipline, to strength, speed, explosiveness, landmine, one-legged RDL, and you have to be consistent about it. All right, guys, the first exercise today is pull-ups. Obviously a very common exercise with many variations. It's been labeled as the squat of the upper body. But today we're gonna go over a few main points: your shoulders, your hands, your core, as well as your feet, and how those things can help you do a better pull-up. All right, guys, the very first cue I want you to pay attention to is the hand placement. I'll do it the wrong way, or excuse me, not the best way first. So people usually pronate their hands, they do a pull-up, and their shoulders start to round forward as they come towards the top of the bar. Again, everybody in the lifting game has a shoulder injury, has a shoulder issue. If we can avoid it, let's avoid it. So if I'm bringing my shoulder up, I'm putting a crazy amount of stress on my AC joint. If I can keep my scap nice and locked down and depressed, now that shoulder stays externally rotated and that lat works a little bit more. So now we'll see it in the neutral grip. By doing this, my shoulders stay nice and locked in. I set my form and I pull. Notice my shoulders stay back. I still do a full depth, but my shoulders are nice and locked in and thus safe. All right, guys, the second cue I was telling you about was the shoulders. Not how you think though. It's really about the bottom portion of the pull-up. When you go ahead and you complete a first rep, you see a lot of people almost dangling at the bottom of the pull-up. That's horrible for your shoulders because your scapularis is screaming to hang on to that shoulder blade. So I want you to maintain a depression in that scap and a scapular retraction at the bottom of the rep. Okay, guys, I have a lot of people always ask me, how do I stop swinging in my pull-up? So the third and fourth tip are to help you. First one I want you to pay attention to is the core strength, okay? I want you to actually hold your core as tight as you can while you do the pull-up. I don't want any excess leaning like this or tucking your feet behind you. That's too much extension. That's why you're swinging. If you hold your core, you become stable. Number 4, as I said, pay particular attention to the feet. When you point your toe, plantar flexion, it stimulates a posterior chain all the way up your body. Along with that core engaged, you now remain still, and all the emphasis is on your latissimus pulling you up. Okay, guys, the next exercise we're gonna go over is Bulgarian split squats. Very, very, very good exercise for building lower body strength, especially my women who wanna get that, butt elevated a little bit. It's perfect. There's a few cues I want you to pay attention to. Number 1 is where my knee is over my foot. Number 2 is how my hips are aligned. And number 3, how my torso moves through the movement. All right, guys, the proper setup is very simple. We're gonna start from the ground up, okay? Foot in the ground, nice and firm. Heel outside of the foot, big toe in the ground. I set myself, back foot up, core engaged. I'm gonna come with my knee over the toe and then push back into that squat. Notice, staying nice and tight with that form, pressing that heel and toe and come up, squeezing that glute. All right, guys, the first thing I want you to pay attention to is the foot. A lot of people mess up because they put too much pressure on the heel, or they come up on the toes and their heel comes up off the floor, leading to instability. So we're gonna press that heel into the ground. We're gonna follow the outside of that foot and big toe into the ground, creating a nice, stable platform for us to actually do the lift off of. Okay, guys, second cue is I want you to pay attention to the hips. Most people, when they do this, their hips stay stiff and stagnant, creating this good morning or this glorified back extension. We don't want that, so they look like this. They don't actually move their hips, and they just come here and do one of these. They put a crazy amount of pressure on their lower back. We want your hips to move and actually conform into that lunge, so you're thrusting them forward. So here, now that knee comes forward and my hips come forward, and now I come up, creating that squat. Guys, the last one and most important is how the torso is throughout the movement. You should be locked in where your joints are aligned and manipulated the correct way. I don't want this where you're so stagnant and erect that when you come down, you're putting all this crazy pressure on your lower back. You should have your core engaged with your knee forward. So as you see, my knee, my hip, my shoulders, and my head are in line. And now I do my squat. Come down, maintaining that form, do my squat. Again, it's not pushing back here and doing one of these where there's instability. My core is engaged, I'm in line, and I'm locked in for the entire rep. Okay guys, a great exercise for the lower abs are reverse crunches. A lot of people perform these on a decline bench. That's why we're on the decline bench. I want you to pay attention to my pelvis where I see most people mess up on. It's a great way to injure yourself. So if you watch and do it the right way, it'll be a great way to actually engage that lower abs and save yourself some back pain in the future. I bring my knees up, dorsiflex my toes to the knees, heels to the butt. I come up, come down. Notice my pelvis stays locked in. I don't want you to come down and then relax, where all that pressure now is creating an arch. This is where people now start using momentum to get their legs up. All right, guys, when we talk about the hips, I want you to be smart and listen to what I'm trying to refer to. So when I say anterior pelvic tilt, the pelvis floor is pushing forward towards my anterior. When I say posterior pelvic tilt, my hips are now twisted or manipulated to go back, so there is a tilt towards my posterior. So I want you to keep a posterior tilt when doing these reverse crunches to really engage the lower abs. Okay guys, another great unique exercise for the chest as well as the core is a one-arm med ball push-up, okay? We talked about proper form. This is one of them. You have to be very particular with how you set on this exercise to make sure you actually get the stimulus it's trying to create. It's an offset push-up. I'm going to squeeze the hell out of the med ball, set my arm, set my core engaged. I come down, press up, and then I want to shift onto my shoulder with a touch. Come down, reset. So push up, and then a shift. All right, guys, the one-legged Romanian deadlift with a landmine attachment creates a great amount of stability for anybody looking to do this movement who cannot truly balance themselves. So the landmine's already set up for us. We are going to do what's called a contralateral component. So you're going to have your plant foot and the weight is going to be in the opposite side of your body. So therefore your right hand. We're going ahead, we're going to pick up the weight, adjust necessary, slight bend in the knee, and watch the pelvis. It's going to push back as I lower the weight, and as I come up, I'm going to squeeze my glutes. First big problem I see with people trying to do a Romanian deadlift is that they're not really loading their hips the way they need to do it. So in a sense, they almost just bend over rather than actually hinging at the hip. Now, some people can actually do the RDL really well, but then when they come to a one-legged, that all goes out the window. So watch when I do and watch when I set up for my Romanian deadlift. I'm picking up, I'm full extension. Before I even start to go forward, I set my hips back. That's your load, that's your hinge. And now I come down, staying nice and tight. I feel that stretch in my hamstring. I come up and I squeeze my glute. I want that pelvic tilt. Coming forward, squeezing. Coming forward, squeezing. The next big thing I see is that when people try to do the RDL, their hips never stay aligned. They have a tendency to open their hips. So when they do their movement, they come down, they get to a certain point and they can't hold that stability, so they open up their hips. The trick is to point your back toe towards your front heel. Rotate your hips, and now I come down and come up and keep my pelvis nice and stable. All right, guys, that's it for today. I hope you like the new exercises. Use them in the gym. See you next time.